Well, this is our Living Library series, and I'm here with Kyleeah Young, who you have seen on the Exploring Integrity group. So, just to kind of give kind of an overview, I've been doing these Living Library conversations with all of the members of that group, and we're putting together kind of an asynchronistic training about group interaction, and it's going towards spirituality, learning more about spirituality. What does it mean to be spiritual? What does it mean to heal and be healed? And just a reminder that anybody watching this, if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank, you can get credit for watching all of these videos as a service provided. So that's an hour that you get that you can exchange for a service from somebody else in our network. So, Kyleeah, let's get right into it. When I ask you, tell me about your spiritual journey, or what has your spiritual journey been like? What's the first thing that comes up for you?
Um, I was raised in like a Christian household.
Hmm.
And Christianity was a really big part of my life. Like my grandfather was best friends with our pastor. So like it wasn't just kind of one of those like, oh, I know the pastor. It was like I've been on vacation with the pastor.
Yep.
So like, you know, and my grandmother ran like every group you could imagine in my church. So like I think I probably spent as much church time at church as the pastor's children.
Yep. Hmm.
Growing up. But Christianity never, I don't know, I never really found my home in
Hmm.
Christianity. There was a lot that I agreed with, and then there was just a lot of stuff that didn't make sense to
Hmm.
me.
Yep.
Um, and so I hit a really difficult time in my life. And at that point, my best friend Ray, and Ray's mom Cindy, both of them had gotten into like astrology and tarot readings and this kind of stuff. And like previous to that, this difficult time in my life, they were like, hey, you should check this out. And I was like, no, the Bible says no. Like, what are you guys doing? Because like at the time when we first became friends, Cindy was married to an army chaplain and like was doing like so it was like this like 180 that I was just like, what? But
Hmm.
then when I hit this rough time, I was like, well, what I used to know isn't working. So what's with this like astrology stuff? What are you like what are you talking about with astrology? What are you talking about with tarot? And I think the first ever look at my birth chart, I was like, oh, okay, I'm home. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is cool.
Cool.
Yeah, there we are.
Cool. What were when you looked at that birth chart? What were some of the most prominent things that stood out to you? Whether it be a sign or a house or a planet?
Hmm.
Yeah.
For
What?
me, it was the realization that like my son wasn't my defining factor.
Right. Hmm.
And that actually most people never experienced my son. They
Mm.
only really saw my rising and my moon.
Mm.
And
Now,
I was like,
what is your sun and what is your rising and what is your moon?
so my son is, I'm a Scorpio sun.
Okay,
I am
my
a
daughter.
Pisces rising, and
Okay,
I am a Taurus moon.
okay, very cool. Okay,
Yes.
so they
So
saw the Taurus and the Pisces, but not so much the Scorpio. Okay, that's
and
interesting.
but it also explained, it also really clarified something for me, which is when people would get like really really close, like because again with that Scorpio energy, you got hoops to go through before you're going to be like fully inner circle. Like we
Oh yeah,
just that's
yeah.
not a, nope. But when they would get there, they would be like, who are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? And then understanding astrology, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is probably real confusing for you.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
fair. Yeah. No, hi, I'm a Scorpio. Yeah, it's
Yep,
just been
yep.
back
They say
there.
still waters run deep, Scorpios.
Hmm.
So yep, absolutely.
Well, and my chart is very much almost entirely mainly earth and water.
Hmm.
I think that I have the tiniest bit of fire and air. My Mars sits in Gemini,
Hmm.
and
Mine too.
like I think that's the most like. And then I have my North Node is in Aquarius, which I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, that tracks. And then
Yep.
my midheaven is in Sagittarius.
Okay.
That's like the extent, like the fire and the water in the fire and the air, sorry, in my chart. The rest is like all earth and
Water
water.
in the air. Yeah. Earth.
So
Yep.
I
Water.
and like I have a Scorpio Venus and a Scorpio Mercury. So
Hmm.
like I am as like intense of a person as a person can get once you get past those like
Hmm.
boundaries and those like I very much am a Scorpio, and I think this is a very much a Scorpion Taurus thing as well,
Hmm.
where like I will not seek you out.
Right.
If you want me and you want my friendship and you're coming to me and you're going to continue to come to me until I'm like, okay, yep, sure.
Yep. That's the magnetism of the Scorpion energy. Yeah, I can relate a lot to that. I'm a Capricorn in the eighth house.
Ah, okay, yeah.
So yeah, so I really take on a lot of those scorpionic
Mm-hmm.
qualities. And my Venus is also in Scorpio, which is in conjunction to my North Node in the house of service,
Oh,
in the sixth house
interesting.
of service. So yeah, and my daughter's a Scorpio. What's interesting is my Mars, which is also in Gemini, predicted what sign my son would be. My son is a Gemini, and my Venus
Ah,
in Scorpio predicted what my daughter would be, which
mm,
is a Scorpio. So
yep.
getting back to that journey, what is it about the Scorpion energy? Because what we associate, a lot with the Scorpion energy is kind of like the dualism, a little bit of the darkness, a little bit of that dark energy. Have you found what has your experience been like? Discovering you're a Scorpio, discovering your home, and what people might misunderstand about
Mm.
some of the hangups that people have with Scorpios and that really intense, sometimes some would say dark energy.
Yeah. So the thing about the Scorpio, so there's a few, I think there's like three really big not known things. If you're not a Scorpio, you're probably not going to know these things.
Yeah.
Um, One of the first things is Scorpios are one of the few zodiac signs that actually have like a well-known tagline, which
Mhm.
is like die many times before you die.
Yeah.
And it's because we are always reinventing ourselves.
Yeah.
We
Death and
see,
regeneration. Yeah.
yeah, that's our and it's like it's constant. Like it doesn't, and it's not something that we can just control. It
Yeah.
literally is just like a part of who we are.
Yeah.
The second is the Scorpio goes through like these evolutions where we'll start as the Scorpion, where we're in that darker, lower energy, and then we move to the
Yeah.
ego, which is very much where we get into that like observer, but we're emotionally detached still. We're not
Yes.
there. And then we move into the Phoenix, which is
Yep.
like a combination of all of it.
Yep.
Um, and that cycle takes a really long time, like a long time. And while that's happening, we're having all these like little transformations
Mm-hmm.
during that process. I would say I'm moving into my Phoenix era now.
Hmm.
Like that's the place I feel like, and we get this reputation for being dark and obsessive and vengeful and like intense and hypersexual and like, and the thing and like super mysterious and like and the thing about it is, we can be, but it's because we have the ability to go to places in the emotional world, the spiritual realm, the mental realm, that most people just genuinely cannot handle going because it's a
Absolutely.
very, very dark space. But the difference is we don't become that unless we are like deeply traumatized or have gone through some really like typically we don't become that. We
Hmm.
are just able to understand it in a way that not everyone else can. And so when we see the darkness inside of other people, we aren't phased by it. And so it gives this opinion that we're kind of like these dark, like, but we can be vengeful, but like that's not actually, it's this thing of that we are fiercely protective of the people that we care about. And
Yes.
we know how awful people can be without people even needing to tell us. Like we can just sort of sense it. So a lot of our like standoffish behavior that people can see from us sometimes and those like secretiveness is just because like most of the time I can walk into a space and have a conversation with someone. I know everything you're not telling me.
Hmm.
So like you can be like, I'm having a great day. And I'm like, "Okay, but you're not. Um, the other thing that's like I think a misconception, Scorpios when we're vengeful, most of us, we if we really go to the place where we're going to get revenge, we're not doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
We're going to get other people to do it for us. But
Hmm.
you're going to know it came from us. But you're
Right.
never going to actually be able to prove that we had anything to do with it.
Hmm.
But you're going to know that we did. But like that's not what we want to do. We
Right.
want to we want to learn everybody's secrets. We want to learn the depth
Mhm.
of what humanity is capable of.
Mhm.
So we can also show them the opposite.
Yeah.
We want to learn the darkest of darkest they're capable of, so we can show them the lightest that they're capable
Mhm. Yeah.
of. And we are probably even more so than Cancer. We're
Mhm.
probably the most sensitive sign of the zodiac.
Mhm.
But because we know that, we give across that hard, sort of like
Mhm.
whatever, like highly reactive exterior.
Mhm.
But it's also because we're constantly in change. Like we're
Mhm.
never fixed. A Scorpio is never going to be one way. Like I guarantee people who knew me even a year ago, they
Mhm.
were to meet me now would be like, I'm sorry, huh? What?
Yeah. It's that constant regeneration. Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm. And so I think one of the things that's really, and the hypersexualization too, that is totally a misconception. Our house deals with sexuality, but it doesn't deal with sexuality in the terms of like we're just sleeping with everyone. It's
Mhm.
that we have a deep understanding for sexuality in general, like
Yeah.
just what it means for people and like how to be comfortable in your own body and be able to take ownership of what feels good, what doesn't, what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, how you
Mhm.
express yourself, like all of those things. And it makes us seem like we're hypersexual, but that's not the case. Like I know so many Scorpios that are demisexual. Like
Yeah.
unless they have that emotional connection, it's not happening.
Right.
Um, it's just that we're very comfortable in the world of sexuality. We have no
Mhm.
problems talking about it, engaging in it. Like, but it doesn't mean that like we're sex crazed, sex focused, everything's about sex.
Right. Mhm.
Um, and then I think there's this misunderstanding too. You cannot have a light casual relationship with a Scorpio. That's not a
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Like that's not it's not happening. If
Mhm.
you're trying to do that, say goodbye to the Scorpio. Because
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
we don't have time. Like we won't. Like we that's in the area where I think our fixed signed energy comes out where we're just like,
Mhm.
you're either going deep with me or we're not going anywhere at all.
Yeah.
We
Exactly.
don't do surface level. So
Mhm.
that's what it is. So learning about that though and understanding that about myself set me free
Mhm.
because I was like, all this time I felt like I was crazy because like I would always have these really deep, intense friendships with people. And the
Mhm.
people that wouldn't go deep with me, I was instantly like, no. And then
Yeah.
I always kind of felt bad for that because I was like, why am I? But then understanding that, I was like, okay, no, that's just how I am.
Mhm.
And like when I also understood that I am not the person that's going to go and initiate the relationship. It's really truthfully like most of my signs, other than maybe the Pisces,
Mhm.
are the type that are kind of like, I'm here.
Mhm.
You can come
Mhm.
see me and I will engage with you.
Mhm.
And after a certain amount of time, I'll decide if you're someone I'll let in closer or if I'll go my own way.
Yep.
Understanding that about myself, though, was like, because it gave me this freedom to just be me. And
Mhm.
I stopped worrying so much about trying to be more social. And like, I just did the things that felt good and focused on the relationships that made sense to me and nurtured the friendships I had and didn't
Mhm.
worry about other friendships because I was just like, if it's the person that's supposed to be, they're going to come to me.
Right.
They're going to
Mhm.
establish that connection and they're going to understand that in the beginning, and on top of that, like I'm neurodivergent. I have ADHD, I have autism, and I have bipolar disorder. So with those
Mm.
combinations, like I'm typically not going to be the first one to reach out to you unless we're really, really close.
Right. Mhm.
And I have object permanence. So like I'll
Mhm.
go if I don't talk to you every day, I'll forget.
Yeah.
It's not personal. So you couple that in with like the scorpionic and Taurus energy, that's very
Mhm.
much just like I'm doing what I'm doing with what's here in front of me with my things.
Right.
Like people really had to like work to be close to me.
Mhm.
And understanding that about my chart made me feel better about myself
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I stopped feeling like I was doing something wrong to people or that I was like a difficult person to like. I just understood that I'm an intense human being
Mhm.
and be connected and close to me is intense. It's going to take work. It's going to
Mhm.
take time. And if you're willing to do it, you won't have a friend that's more loyal than me. Like you won't. And you
Absolutely.
won't have anyone in your life that's going to do for as much for you as I will. Like you won't. But if you're not willing to like go through what you have to go through first to get there,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's coming up, what's emergent for me at the moment as well too, is understanding how astrology is that archetypal energy work,
Mhm.
where I think like with in the sense with Christianity and with religion,
Mhm.
it really gets hung up on in on the doctrine, indoctrination,
Yeah.
where astrology and some of these archetypes that come up really help to do that work, to
Mhm.
do the work of really understanding yourself. And
Mhm.
I think there's a healing, there's a healing element in being able to understand yourself and being able to peel away the layers of where's my mind going, which is the Mercury, where's my emotions going, which is the moon, and where's my ego, which is the sun. Yeah.
Well, and even if you look at like Venus, how do I love? How do I receive love?
Yeah.
Like, because we talk about love languages, right? A
Hmm.
lot of time your love languages are what you didn't get as a child.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
that's how you want to be loved when you get older. So like if
Hmm.
you didn't get a lot of words of affirmation, that's what you're seeking because you
Hmm.
didn't get that. But like the Venus tells you how you love and how you best get love. Like for Scorpio Venus,
Hmm.
that light fluffy stuff, it's not gonna feel like love. Like
Yeah.
if there isn't a depth and an intensity and a passion to it,
Hmm.
you're not gonna feel love, and you don't know how to love someone without that as well.
Yeah.
But knowing that is like pivotal, like not just in romantic relationships, but in like friendships and stuff
Oh
too.
yeah.
Because people will be like, "Oh, you're such an intense friend," and it's like, "Well, yeah, I have my Scorpio, my Venus is in Scorpio. Like I love intensely. Like that's just
Mhm.
what I do." And then if you look at like Chiron's another one where Chiron's going to tell you what you experienced, what childhood trauma you experienced,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
and how you can heal from it, and why you're so good at helping other people with this specific thing
Right.
that you didn't necessarily know. Um, your Black Moon Lilith tells you where you've experienced shame in life and what you're trying to break free from, like what kind of shame you're trying to release. Like
Mm.
astrology just tells you all these things about yourself that like are so helpful when you're working on personal development or personal healing or just personal empowerment in general. And
Mm.
especially too, like I had a friend whose parent wanted birth like chart readings for their children. The
Mhm.
kids all gave me consent. I did the chart readings. And like to watch that mother's face as she's reading through these and she's just like, wow, like everything makes sense now.
Yeah.
And now I understand why every time I tried to communicate this way, it did not work.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And so, like, just taking those little things and making subtle shifts with how she was with each one of her kids, relationships blossomed. These
Yeah.
children were suddenly, it was like a whole new thing.
Mhm.
And it was just from simply just knowing that, like, oh, they have a Taurus moon. So they like things to be stable and predictable. And, if they're going to have something, they want it to be the best thing and the nicest thing because they take pride in that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, understanding that about her daughter. Okay, I'm not giving you hand me downs anymore because
Mhm.
the hand me downs don't make you feel good.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
was just those little things, right? But like they made a massive difference.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What's coming up for me as well too in this moment is looking at the chart as because the houses really mean a lot to me because what I feel what has been alive in my life is that the planets kind of tell the story of what's happening intrinsically, and the
Mhm.
houses kind of tell the story about your experience interacting with the outside world. um and my being Capricorn in the eighth house, how and my Mercury there as well too,
Mhm.
is really kind of digging underneath the surface and taking the time to understand what's going on underneath the surface, why things are the way they are,
Mhm.
why there are conflicts that people don't want to look at, and by
Mhm.
not looking at it,
Mhm.
that's what escalates the conflict as
Mhm.
well. um yeah, so I don't. I want to ask you, what was it? What do you? Why do you believe, or why do you feel that religion or Christianity is so repellent of this line of learning, of this line of understanding, like astrology?
If I'm gonna be totally honest, it's because okay, Christianity and its originality,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna go back to like when it first came into like the ethers, as you
Hmm.
want to call it,
Yep.
was to me, it was supposed to be a radicalized religion. We're treating everyone with love. Everyone
Yep.
is equal. Everyone is the same. No one is
Hmm.
better than anyone else. The less fortunate of us deserve more attention. We should be doing more
Right.
for them than what we're doing for like Tom that's like in his $1 million house.
Yep.
What it became, though, was a tool for assimilation and power and control.
Yep. Hmm.
That is why it's so repellent, because astrology is all about you as the individual and
Hmm.
what your individual signature means in the collective community and how
Hmm.
it plays a part in the collective community and how understanding your individual signature and Sarah's individual signature
Hmm.
makes you a better community.
Yep.
Whereas Christianity and religions of that sort seek to, everyone has to be like this, and they
Hmm.
have to do this, and they have to say this, and they must live like this, and then everyone will be worthy and everyone can be together.
Hmm.
But like, if Tom literally can't, where's Tom's place? Well, Tom doesn't have a place then.
Mm.
Mhm. But with astrology, oh, so this is what Tom can do. Okay, cool. Tom, we got room for you right here.
Yeah.
There's a spot for you right here, Tom. Welcome. But with Christianity, and this is the thing, is I look at when I look at Christianity, because people are like, well, not all Christians are like that. And I'm like, no, yeah, I understand. But if we're going to talk about specifically the institution of it itself at its
Hmm.
basis and core, not the outliers, it is a set list of guidelines, a set structure, and a set behavioral pattern that you must follow in order to be a Christian and to be a good Christian. Like on paper in doctrine, whereas astrology is like, this is who you are.
Hmm.
How are you going to live that in the world?
Yep.
And this is who Jane is. How are you going to navigate Jane?
Hmm.
Like it, astrology at its core is all about the individual.
Right.
And what we forget is you have to be totally good in yourself as an individual to be successful in the community.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you're not good and you don't understand you and you don't understand why you do what you do and how you do what you are useless to the community
Hmm.
because you're just going to be in there waving around, hitting everyone, and everyone's like, "Why are you hitting me?" And you're like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then how does anyone know how to relate to you, how to work with you, how to love you, like all of that, right?
Hmm.
So that's why I think it's like so repellent, and that's also why I think it tears down stuff like astrology and those type of things so much
Hmm.
because those type of things threaten that whole like the the pastor or the priest or like whoever is in charge and they tell you how you're supposed to be and you follow, right?
Yep.
So it like destroys the hierarchy and the systems of like basically
Hmm.
oppression in some instances that a lot of these like religions, these indoctrinated religions promote essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm studying the Aquarian Gospel right now,
Mm.
which is kind of like the bridge between what we have been taught,
Mhm.
the classic Gospels, I'll call them, I
Yeah.
guess. And it's starting to add in layers of that what I call natural law. Some people would call
Mhm.
it New Age. I'm exploring what New Age really means to me, because I think natural law is kind of like the stylization of, or I should say, New Age is kind of like the stylized version of natural law. Um, But yeah, what I'm finding out is, if you want to get back to the purity of what
Mhm.
Christianity was in the beginning, if you want to go back to the Gnostic Gospels, and
Mhm.
being that Jesus was from the Essenes, was from the Essene sect, um, there was a lot of promotion of equal rights, of sovereignty. The divine feminine was very much a part of that culture,
Mhm.
and and that's very uncomfortable for those who have been indoctrinated in this patriarchal, system that had edited, really edited the Gospels to serve their own, kind of serve their own purpose, to serve their
Yeah.
things that were more about authority than it was about understanding the individual sovereign rights.
Mhm.
Right. Um, where are you at now? Now, so in your journey,
Yeah.
where
Um,
are you at now? If you were to kind of look at, each chapter of your life, what would this chapter of your life be? What are the themes that are emerging?
I took all of the stuff that I learned because I went through all the iterations, the witchy, super pagan,
Yeah.
like spirit guides to like more of like the esoteric sort of like Rudolf Steiner, like though type of like like of like spirituality. So I kind of pulled like everything together. And I would say that this chapter of my life now with my spiritual journey and all of this is figuring out who I am as a spiritual being
Hmm.
in this life, in this incarnation,
Hmm.
and what my purpose was for coming here. Like, why did I come to earth? What am I doing?
Mm.
And spiritually, how am I helping? What am I supposed to be doing?
Hmm.
What that looks like for me, how I do that. And so for me, that came down to energy readings, which is something I've been doing pretty much my entire spiritual life, but I didn't
Hmm.
understand it. I didn't know how I did it. I didn't. And it wasn't something that I talked about. Like my thing was, oh, I do birth charts, I do human design, I do tarot, I do spells, and which like that was what I like promoted. Everyone around me knew like that was my thing. But
Hmm.
I always did these things where people would come and they would be like, "Ah, yeah, they come for a tarot reading, per se. They'd be trying to figure something out. And next thing you know, we're having a 2.5 hour long conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm like telling them about past lives that they had. And I'm like honing in
Wow.
on things. And they're just like, how do you know that? And I was like, I don't know. But yeah. And they're like, no, how? Like, dude,
Mhm.
I honestly don't know. I'm sorry. I can't help you. And also I would find that I would get these really terrible headaches every time I did them.
Mm,
And I couldn't
mm,
figure out why. But there was this thing that I always knew that I could do that I didn't really talk about with people
mhm,
because people have even in like what you would consider like the new age spiritual community,
mhm.
there's this specific thing that people like almost always are like, oh no, 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 that's dangerous. You don't know. And I'm like, I've been doing this since I was a child. Yes, I do. Definitely.
Yeah.
Because a lot in our world, we like to categorize things as bad or good. You know,
Yes.
good, evil, that's the thing,
Yeah.
which is
That's
like
the law of
not.
polarity. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
it's there are definitely things, right, that are intrinsically bad, but they exist that way so that we understand what good we want. We can't have the light without the dark. And so I'm in this phase in my life where I have embraced what I call shadow light living,
mhm,
which is basically like I'm very comfortable and at home in the shadow.
mhm,
I actually work with beings that people would consider shadow beings, that
mhm.
people would consider potentially evil or dark. I
Right.
even work with dark energy where I will do sessions with people or work with people and I'm pulling literal, like unhealthy, dark energy out of them. And I'm
Mhm.
taking it inside myself and
Yeah.
transmuting it back out into like clear, light, love energy.
Yeah.
Um, and I basically live in the shadow so that I can help other people come out of the
Mhm,
shadows that they're stuck in and into the light,
mhm.
continue living their life in the light. And that's, yeah, that's my chapter right now. Like
Mm,
that's where I'm living, that's what I'm doing, and that's why I came here.
yeah.
That was my whole purpose and reason for coming. Um, was also because I knew just through past life experiences and stuff that I've always been the kind of person that could handle darkness that other people necessarily couldn't, or
Hmm.
could handle things like when my first real like being pulled into spirituality was I was actually in the hospital
Hmm.
on protective watch because my mental health was really bad.
Hmm.
And I'm sleeping, and I thought it was a dream, but it
Yeah.
turned out it wasn't, because the PSW that was in the room with me was like, I don't know what happened, but I was
Mm.
sleeping and I turned over and there was a face that was like right here.
Oh, wow.
And they were looking at me. And I was looking at it and I was like, and they were like, look, we've been trying to talk to you for a while. You need to wake up because we got work to do. And I was like, you like Hermes? And they were like, yes, wake
Mm.
up. And I sat up, and the PSW was like, sweetie, are you okay? I'm like, what? She goes, you were asleep, you rolled over, and I thought you were looking at me, but you definitely weren't. But you were looking at something. And you were like, aren't you Hermes? And then you sat up. And I was like, and that was when I figured out that I was a God phone, which
Hmm.
basically and I have memories as a kid of this stuff too, but like my grandparents were super Christian, so they would be like, no, don't say that, don't talk. And I was like, okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
But basically, what it is like gods and goddesses of different pantheons, different groups, and not just them, but like angels, even demons. All of these are like,
Hmm.
hey, we need help with something. We need you to talk to so and so because they need to be doing such and such, and they're not listening. Can you get us in touch? Or hey, I'm trying to figure out this thing. What do we do? Like,
Hmm.
I basically was essentially like customer service
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
spiritual beings.
Yeah.
And that got me into channeling. And so then I started channeling spiritual beings. And
Hmm.
that was wild because it took me forever to really figure out how that worked. But there would be moments where like I'd be talking to someone and all of a sudden I'd just get jumped. And
Hmm.
suddenly it would be like, hi, oh, bye. Like Kylie is gone. And like
Hmm.
it was the strangest thing because I'd come back and I'd have no memory because I trance channel. So I don't hold it. I do not, unless it's recorded or someone tells me, I do not know what's happened.
Right.
But I would come
Hmm.
back into my body and the person would be looking at me like, it wasn't you. And I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And they were like, I used to think channeling was a hoax, but like, no, it was
Hmm.
literally, it didn't even sound like you. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so I think all of that has come together to do what I do now, which is basically my main purpose is transmuting, I call it shadow energy.
Hmm.
And it's basically a lot of like, it's not just like stuck trauma though. Some of it is like actual, just like black mook gooky like energy from
Yeah.
like being stuck in capitalist society and all of these different things. And I basically, the people that are the most like stuck in it, where it's like
Hmm.
a in the deepest, they get pulled to do energy readings for me because I clear it,
Hmm. Hmm.
naturally clear it out. I'm also a catalyst. So I am that person. I tell this to all my friends. Anyone who
Hmm.
spends time with me, I'm giving you a disclaimer. If you're going to be around me, all the things you don't want to face, they're going to come up.
Yeah.
Like you are going to have to face them because that's just what I do. I don't know
Hmm.
how I do it. I don't do it intentionally and I can't control it. So the more time you spend with me and the more time you're around me, you will have to face things you do not want to face,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
the things you've been avoiding the most. It's going to come up and you're going to have to clear it. So your options are either you're going to be my friend, knowing that's going to happen and you're going to have to deal with this stuff at some point, or you're going to go now because
Hmm.
trust me, it will happen. And it does
Yeah.
every time. Like, it doesn't. And so I seem to be this person who comes into people's lives a lot of the time for like a season.
Hmm.
I almost call myself like a hallways or a
Hmm.
crossroads person because
Hmm.
I'm transition point. I operate a lot of the times as like a transition point for people.
Hmm.
I'll come
Hmm.
into your life for a period of time and all the stuff you haven't want to dealt with or face or I'm gonna bring it all up. But I'm not just gonna bring it up. I'm gonna bring it up and help you clear it. And I'm gonna
Hmm.
help you get to like the best stable version of you, and then I'm gonna go away. And you're
Hmm.
gonna do what you're doing, and I'm gonna move on to the next person.
Hmm.
And some people stay, some people but it's a small group of people that has managed to like stay through
Hmm.
those transitions. Most people want to stay, and it's just kind of like this,
Mm.
I was only here to help you because if I stick around, you're going to become dependent on me to continue
Hmm.
to. So I got to go,
Yeah.
but you'll be fine. You got this. And then there's the handful of people that actually get to stay because, you know, they can do the growth without me.
Hmm.
I just kind of help speed it up and make it more streamlined.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So it's a lot of responsibility, and it's heavy lifting, like you said. Now,
Mhm.
do you feel that you chose this, or do you feel like that this was given to you? I'd love to talk about that.
Um, so knowing who I was,
Hmm.
so everyone has a different view on how they view spirituality, right? And the
Yeah,
world and how even this world came into existence. And, everyone has their own narrative and their own story.
that's right. Hmm.
Me personally, I believe all of us were one specific intrinsic soul.
Hmm.
And when we're not in our different incarnations, we are that soul. So
Yeah.
knowing who my soul was prior to being on Earth and when, humanity not just humanity, but the universes, because there's multiple universes, there's
Hmm.
more than one Earth, like there's all these things.
Oh yeah.
Knowing who I was, that has always been who I have been. That's
Hmm.
always been my job.
Hmm.
My job has always been to be the dark, sort of chaotic, passionate, creative, life giving side
Hmm.
of like, I almost feel like my job has always kind of been to be the divine feminine. And I think there's
Hmm.
this really big misconception on what the divine feminine actually.
Sure. Yep. Hmm.
The divine feminine is chaos. It's
Yep.
not like soft and gentle and nurture and like it can be when
Hmm.
required, but it is just chaos.
Yep.
The job of the divine masculine is to create a container for the chaos.
Hmm.
Divine feminine is like it's just chaos. It's like creating, it's evolving, it's expanding, it's making things bigger and brighter and lighter. But that requires going into the darkness because
Yep.
darkness is also chaos.
Hmm.
The worst parts of people are where you can pull the brightest lights out of.
Yep.
So that's always who I've been. And like almost every past life recollection that I have, that's basically what I've been doing. Like,
Hmm.
and it's who I don't know how to be anything else.
Right. Hmm.
And I don't really want to be.
Hmm.
Um, it can be challenging. And like, I think this life was especially difficult, but I chose for it to be because I
Hmm.
wanted to be done a lot of my karmic lesson learning. So I was like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna live what we call it the life of the martyr, which
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
like you go through it for like the first half of your life. You're like,
Hmm.
and then you hit like, you're into your 30s, getting into your 40s, and that's when everything sort of evens out. And you have like a chill ride to the end of it. And then the rest of your lives, if you decide to come back for human lives, are more like a fun party because you've done like, so you're just kind of out there living your best life, helping people heal, but you're not necessarily dealing with like the emotional like
Yeah.
drudgery that you probably have gone through. So I definitely did a life of the martyr life. And that was
Hmm.
it was a choice. I knew exactly what I was doing and I chose to do it. And this responsibility that I've taken on, I have chosen to do it in every single life. There hasn't been a single life where I haven't said yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, because for a lot of people it would feel heavy.
Hmm.
But for me it doesn't. It's as simple as breathing. Like
Hmm.
I do it without knowing most of the
Hmm.
time. Like, and so it's really the gifts that you don't, the stuff that you do the easiest, a lot of times is actually the stuff that you're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
just we live in a society that taught us that things have to be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Energy reading for me is so easy. It's so easy, but it's so funny because even in building this, like in doing these readings for people, I kept trying to complicate it.
Hmm.
Like I would try to have this big crazy routine and all these things that I did before,
Hmm.
and I was like, but I did a reading for somebody last night, and it was just like an off like friend reading. It wasn't like an actual booked proper reading. It was just like a, and both of us forgot that we'd agreed to do it, and then she remembered and she was like, hey, can you? And I was like, yeah, I can do it. So I was not prepared. I was literally playing video games like 5 minutes before she left.
Cool.
I was kind of like, I was in my pajamas. I kind of just like jumped up and I was like, okay, here we go. Yo, that was one of the most powerful readings I've ever done. We were both
Mm,
in tears by the time it was done. She was looking at me like, what the hell? I was like,
yeah.
I know it was going to be this. Um, it wasn't hard though. Like there was
Mhm.
no, but we like to complicate things because society's taught us that like if you're doing actual work or if it's real, it's hard. And that's
Yeah.
just so not true.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. It's not true. Yeah.
And so I had to embrace that. And once I
Mhm.
was able to embrace that, this has all become, and just accepting who I am too has
Mhm.
become a lot easier.
Yeah. 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 What's coming up for me, and it's been coming up in all of these conversations, because we're 40 minutes into this conversation, and to me it went by like nothing. That's the
Mm-hmm,
Kairos time, where
mm-hmm,
it's living time, and it's the natural. It's in accordance with natural law, where there's a flow.
mm-hmm,
This is opposed to Chronos time, where Chronos, the Greek Titan, or the Titan, is the taskmaster, the one who ate his children, and it measures.
unfriendly conversations.
What's
Anyways,
that?
I said him and I have had unfriendly conversations.
Oh yeah, I'd like to hear about that, because that ties into this theme. But yeah, it's those, where it's measured by the minute, the second, and
Mm-hmm,
it's those dense, those dense energies, where
mm-hmm,
you feel guilty, you feel, you feel the time, and it feels
mm-hmm.
like it's heavy, and it feels like it's difficult. But yes, tell me about your conversations with Chronos, because I want to say too, Kylie, with the spiritual community that I'm involved in, this is as natural as breathing, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to normalize conversations like this.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I listened to a man, about a year or so ago, at our spiritual community, who channeled George Harrison. So it's
Nice.
yeah, so it's kind of like,
Nice.
this is, let's
Yep.
normalize this. So tell me about your
Right.
conversations with
Oh,
Kronos.
Kronos is funny. So
Hmm.
I have pretty much conversated with probably every god and goddess you can imagine.
Yeah. Hmm.
And Cronus is so a lot of what you see with the gods and goddesses isn't always accurate.
Hmm.
They will present themselves to you however you can best receive them. So
Yeah.
if you want to be in like a overbearing hierarchical structure where you have to send them offerings and like behave in a certain way or they're going to smite you, then that's what they're going to do for you. But that is not naturally how they are.
Hmm.
Like most of them are like, what's up, bro? What can I do for you? Kronos is, by definition, it doesn't matter who he's dealing with, what he is like, you will respect me. And I'm like,
Hmm.
except I won't. And he's like, so every time he has to ask me for help, he gets so irritated. And usually he'll send Hades first because
Oh yeah.
he's like, nah,
Mhm.
not doing it. Nope, no, I don't, no, I don't want to talk to you. No. So Hades will be like, yo. And I'm like, what's up, old man? He's like, okay. And so and it annoys him because there are a lot of people in this world who are God phones who can do what I do.
Mhm.
Um, but some deities, their frequency works better with certain people than with others. And
Right.
for him, I'm actually the easiest person for him
Mhm.
to communicate with. And so he's like, if I had another option that was better. I'm like, I know. But he'll come in and he'll be like, look. And he is a stickler for time. Like
Mhm.
he's very much like, I need it done by this time. And I'm like, okay, I can get it done around that time. And he's like, no, no. I told you I needed it done at noon. And I'm like, yeah, I can get it to you by like 12:30. And he's like, I said noon. And I'm like, and I'm saying 12:30 because I like to watch your eyes twitch.
Mhm.
And he's like, but he is really, really good for people who struggle with time
Mhm.
and want to get better at it. He brings this natural sort of energy and order. And like, if you're trying to really get things done and you have deadlines you have to meet outside of your control, Kronos is the best person.
Mhm.
Also, oddly enough, for someone who was obsessed with control and power and ate his children so no one could overthrow him, he's actually really good at helping people be benevolent leaders and
Hmm.
like kind leaders. His experiences in his past have taught him a lot of things.
Hmm.
And so while he can be very like, I'm Kronos and you'll respect me because I'm Kronos, like I've had people work with him who were very much like, I'm the boss, you're going to do what I say. And within like 3 months of working with him, they're like, no, let's have a collaborative environment. Like, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. And I'm like, that's a new one for you, bud. And he's just like,
Yeah.
I don't like you. I'm like, I know. It's okay. He's like, and every once in a while, when he really wants to like get on my nerves, I'll like have a dream and Zeus will just be like chasing me around, just trying to have a conversation with me. And I'm like, no, no, thank you. No. Because Zeus is another one for different reasons that I just, mm-mm,
Hmm.
mm-mm. I'm like, bruh, you and I are not friends. I don't think we'll ever be. And he's like, you're not always a bad guy. I'm like, 90% of the time, though, you are. And he's like,
Mm, mm.
is that a relative term? I'm like, how many people has your wife smited in like the last 6 months? Fair, fair.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, thank you. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. It's been interesting to like working with gods and goddesses and like celestial beings is it's an interesting experience, especially when you are seeing other people's perceptions
Mhm.
of these beings and you're like, huh, it's so interesting to see you that way because like for me that's not how you are at all. Like and there's a lot of like especially when it comes to like so something like angels and
Mhm.
demons specifically when
Mhm.
people are like oh yeah the angels like I'm like I need you to be like really clear about what you're doing when you're going to
Yeah.
choose to work with an angel. And they're like, what do you mean? Demons are the ones you have to watch out for. I'm like, no, 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 you'd actually be better off, to be honest with you. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm just going to be transparent. Angels are basically functioning psychopaths. Like
Mhm.
they are. Like, if you're not specific and you're like, Archangel Michael, I need a new house. And then that's it. That's you leave it and then your house burns down. And you're like,
Mhm.
why did my house burn down? You said you needed a new house. But that's not how I wanted it.
Yeah.
You didn't specify that. What? Mm-hmm. And like people, like I've heard of these, I've seen these things happen to people, and they're like, see, it was the devil. I was like, it was not. It
Yeah.
was that angel. The angel
Yeah.
that you that's who it was.
Yeah.
It was them. Because
Yeah, I can confirm that, and I want to kind of put something in here as well too, because I'm hoping those in my spiritual community who who do have that reverence for
mhm,
angels. I do want to confirm what you're saying as well too, because I've had an interaction with a man who claimed to be the embodiment of Archangel Michael, and he very much was. He very much had mental health issues. I've worked with suicide survivors. I've worked with
mhm,
power alignment between clinicians and peers enough to know there were some major mental health issues going on there. So, either he was channeling something malevolent, or
he was
the
channeling
angels
Michael.
really
I
are
wouldn't
psychopathic.
it would not it would so archangel so I have a very close relationship with all of the archangels.
Yeah.
um I would not at all be surprised that if that
Mhm.
man stopped channeling Archangel Angel Michael and was like completely clear of his energy entirely, all those mental health, all of those things would go away.
Wow.
He
Hmm.
is he is not like of all if you were gonna ask me the one angel that you could safely call on,
Hmm.
be totally fine. And this is like actual considered archangels. The
Hmm.
only one I would list would be Archangel Sandalphon,
Hmm.
who used to be Elijah.
Hmm.
And then when he passed, he became Sandalphon. He is the only one that I can say 100% you'd be you'd be cool. You'd be pretty
Hmm.
safe. You could be vague with him. You could not know what you're doing, and you would be fine because he
Hmm.
was human.
Right.
He has a certain level of understanding and reverence for humanity, and he is kind of like the messenger between God and the angels and
Hmm.
humanity. That's his thing. everybody else, including Metatron,
Hmm.
who was also human.
Hmm.
Unless you, with Metatron, if you are a child with developmental disabilities, you're fine. You're vibes.
Hmm.
Everybody else,
Hmm.
Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, two of the most popular ones,
Hmm. Yeah.
they're not for the weak of heart. Like
Yeah.
I literally would sit and have a conversation with Lucifer all day long
Hmm.
before I would spend 20 minutes alone in a room with Michael. Like now, if you know what you're doing and
Hmm.
you have a strong self presence and you're very clear and
Hmm.
precise and detailed about what you're asking for, what the terms are that you're agreeing to work through
Hmm.
with what you're asking for,
Hmm.
you're fine. You will be fine. Outside of that, no. And the angels are very much the type of beings where if they've decided that they like you, you're good.
Hmm.
But unless they've made that decision, you don't matter. It's not
Hmm.
even that they are, see, like demons are indifferent to
Hmm.
you. So they'll just be like, oh, they're neither good nor bad. They're indifferent. They have neither negative nor positive feelings towards humanity. It's just kind of like, I
Hmm.
want this. You're willing to do this, so I can have this, and I'll do this for you, so you get this, and that's how we do our business. You hold up your end of the deal, I hold up mine. I'm gonna go. And
Yeah.
they are not like, we see those horror movies where they're like, oh, she was possessed by
Hmm.
Beelzebub. No, no, no. They're not going to waste their energy and their time possessing
Hmm.
Jane from Idaho to do weird backbends downstairs. Like
Right.
that, it's completely beneath them. Like it doesn't serve any of their purposes. A lot of times, if you're dealing with possessions, it's actually usually stuck human energy. It's
Yep.
like stuck human spirits that have gotten stuck and they've become angry and bitter and they've started
Hmm.
just doing these things. Or it's shadow people, which were never human and are just kind of like created off of like traumatic events and stuff, and then they form like a level of sentient consciousness and
Hmm.
they have no interest in good things happening.
Yeah.
Almost never a demon, but like at least with demons they're indifferent, so like as long as you do what you're supposed to and you follow your end of the bargain, cool. Angels actively aren't super fond of humanity,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially like I can get it, like you were created and then your parent was like, yeah, you guys, but these,
Yeah.
and they're like, dude, that one's eating dirt. And he's like, I know, isn't he awesome?
Mm. Mm.
Excuse me? So they, and now not all angels, but like the core, like Archangel core group that most people know,
Hmm.
not fond of humanity,
Yep.
like at all, for the most part, and don't care for the most part. Like it's not even indifferent. They genuinely just don't care.
Yeah.
And if you give them the opportunity to mess with you, they'll take it. So
Yep.
like this is why I'm just like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna pray to, Archangel Gabriel for protection.
Mm. And then
Mm.
usually something, some sort of difficulty emerges and some sort of, escalation often happens as well too. Yeah.
And like for me, it's weird because like I was an angel in a past life.
Hmm.
So I don't have this. And like I can say all these things about them without fear of any kind of like repercussion or negative thing.
Hmm.
And they like literally, I'll say these things. Like I've done readings with people where people are like, no, the angels are not like that. And then like, um, they'll like, it'll be like, oh, somebody wants to channel with you. And the person's like, yeah, yeah, sure. And one of them will come through and be like, no, no, we totally are.
Hmm.
We like, and the person's like, so I guess you were right. And I was like, yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, it's an interesting world, the world of celestial beings.
Hmm.
It's not something that I recommend people just like diving into if you don't know what you're doing,
Oh yeah.
because you can hurt yourself and you can get yourself into some, and like it's not a joke. Like when we're talking about like closed practices too, like for
Hmm.
example, the Orishas and the Loa, those are closed practices. Like
Hmm.
Voodoo, Ifa, those are closed practices. You have to be initiated.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to you and they're like, I'm so and so, and you're not initiated,
Yep. Yep.
watch out, because it's
Hmm.
rare. It can happen. I mean,
Hmm.
it's happened for me, but I have history and lineage.
Hmm.
And also I'm a person of color. So it can happen more likely to people of color than it can to like someone who's not.
Right.
And also I've been a God phone for a very long time. And so
Hmm.
a lot of, and I've had my experiences confirmed by people initiated
Right.
in these practices. And I've
Hmm.
had them say like, if they show up to you, it's okay. Like you are one of the few not initiated people
Hmm.
that they will work with. And the reason that I'm not initiated is because I'm supposed to be able to work with everyone.
Right. Right.
Um, but like even with like the close practices stuff, like
Hmm.
I don't care how skilled you are. If you are not initiated, do not do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and what was really emergent for me too, as well, is I think just from the practical mental health standpoint, being able to understand these energies, I think would really go a long way in really helping to understand the energies that we're dealing with, whether in whatever form they show up or choose to show up in our lives, and or what we're putting out there, what we're asking for as well too, is really just to understand more energy work, which I think could really have a lot of mental health benefits. So just from the practical standpoint, from
Well, I
that.
have a lot of mental health struggles. Like I'm diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. So like when we're talking like issues, so like if anyone has to be careful, it would be me because I'm so susceptible just in my brain chemistry to
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And the thing that I've learned with a lot of this is that the biggest thing that I've had to learn, and I think that a lot of people don't know how to distinguish, is
Hmm.
what is your actual like brain chemistry illness
Hmm.
and what is the actual energy of the being that you're experiencing, because it is
Hmm.
a very different thing.
Hmm.
Your brain can tell you crazy stories and make you believe crazy stuff that
Oh
is
yeah.
like genuinely not happening and not real.
Hmm.
But when it's real, like if you're really encountering that energy, there's a tell that your body's going to give you that your brain cannot create in your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
But it just cannot. And there's almost like a level of like coherent truth that will come through even if you're rambling, that like seeps through the rambling when it's an actual experience with some sort of energy or being
Hmm.
versus just like your mental health is spiraling in your life.
Hmm.
Like especially if you're channeling a being that maybe you are not equipped to channel.
Hmm.
um there's like this seep through of like, wait a minute, okay, that all sounds crazy, but there's this thing that you keep coming back to that just makes sense somehow and like actually sounds logical and coherent.
Hmm.
Let's explore that piece. And if you can do that with someone, you'll be able to find whether that person is actually just going through like a severe, mental health episode, or if it's like there's something attached to you that we need to
Yeah.
move. That's why so I have my bachelor's degree in metaphysical ministry and I'm a licensed metaphysical minister.
Good. Yes, I wanted to get to that before we finished. Yes. Hmm.
And the reason that I did that was so that I could, so I'm certified in DBT therapy, EMDR therapy, CBT therapy, hypnotherapy. You name the therapy modality, I got my certification in it.
Right.
Because
Hmm.
I have always believed that psychology and spirituality need to go hand in hand.
Yes.
You
Hmm.
can't just treat the mental chemistry and the physical chemistry. You
Hmm.
also have to treat the spiritual chemistry.
Yes.
There are people I know that got diagnosed with, say, schizophrenia
Hmm.
that had shadow people attached to them.
Hmm.
And when those shadow people were removed, all of their schizophrenic symptoms gone, like gone, completely gone, never came back. They've never had an issue since. And now that's not to say, obviously, that all schizophrenic, but like these things are important because you have to understand the psychological brain chemistry of
Hmm.
a person,
Hmm.
but then you also have to understand what spirit can do. and what
Hmm.
spirit energy can do. And so I became a certified metaphysical minister so that, because
Hmm.
where I am in Canada, as a minister, I can do therapy and counseling for people. So I can actually offer EMDR. I can do DBT. I can do CBT. And I don't have to go and do like, I don't have to become a licensed psychologist basically to be able to do these things. I also don't have to become like a licensed social worker or that. I can just do it with my, because ministers are considered people who can administer
Hmm.
that type of care. Um, and so that was the reason that I actually did that. I'm working on my master's in metaphysical ministry, and then I'm going to do my doctorate in philosophy with a specialization in holistic counseling. So that just partially it's just for me, but like also because um, it's important to me to be able to. My dream is to create this healing modality essentially that combines things like your astrological birth chart, human design, EMDR, CBT, like the different types of therapies with like the different types of spiritual stuff, with just
Hmm.
like energy readings. And
Hmm.
that's how to treat and assess patients.
Nice. Nice. My colleagues will really be excited to hear that. They're very much into human design, so that's something I'm not as familiar
I
with.
love
But
me some human, the projector in me is like,
mhm,
see, I have the fun human design that most people don't have. So I'm a projector, but I'm a mental projector, which means I have
mhm,
no inner authority. All of
mm,
my authority comes from hearing myself talk about my decisions. And that's when I know
mhm,
what's actually true for me and what I want. And only my throat, head, and sacral, only these three chakras are defined. Everything else in my chart is wide open, which leaves me really susceptible to the influence of others, but it makes me a really great channel.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah,
Good. Well, we are exactly at 1 hour at this
perfect.
conversation here. So, do you have any closing thoughts or anything that you just feel like sharing here as we close out, and we'll turn the recording off and say a few words.
I
But
think the last thing that I would say is trust your intuition.
mhm,
Try to vet the energies that come in. Don't just believe anything that you hear. And I'm putting that out there because I do energy readings and I do readings for people. A good reader, a trustworthy reader, is never going to hit you up first unless it's like a random situation where you ran into each other at a grocery store and they're like, hey, your grandmother won't stop talking. But they're not going to charge you for that. They're just going to give you the message and keep moving.
mhm,
And they're never going to do a session with you and be like, oh, for extra money, you can buy this thing and I can help you with this. Someone who is actually just out here giving legit, true messages, they're going to give you the information. And if something comes up that they can help you with, they'll offer it for free
mhm.
because they brought that to you. You didn't come to them searching for it. And if it's really going to help you, they're going to do it for you because it will help.
Right, right,
All,
and
all
that's
I
what
want
keeps the
people with.
energy exchange pure.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, Kyleeah, thank you very much.
You.
This was awesome. I I
This is
can't
fun.
wait to, to watch it again and really absorb more. So thank you.
Thank